It was a quiet night in January 2017 in Big Bend, Texas, when Walker Daugherty heard voices outside of his bedroom window. He sat up from bed, woke up his wife, and told her that he needed to check out the noise outside. According to Texas Monthly's investigative journalism, Walker grabbed a double-barrel shotgun from his nightstand and loaded it. He walked to the front of the ranch house and cracked the door open. He walked out onto his front porch and stood there for a few seconds in his pajamas. It was quiet until he heard screams coming from the woods. His fiancée, Ashley Boggs, got out of bed and yelled after him, telling Walker to wait before walking out there alone. But he was already on his way into the woods to find out what was happening. Ashley was frantically loading her pistol when she heard Walker yelling into the darkness, asking what people were doing on his property. She ran to wake Walker's sister Morgan and her husband Michael. Ashley assumed Mexicans were outside who were trying to cross the border into the United States, and she feared for their safety. The night progressed to car crashes, violence, and injury. The story of this so-called border ambush rippled across Texas and fueled a political firestorm about illegal immigration. At the time, Walker was working as a guide for his family's hunting business, Big Rim Outfitters. He stayed at the family's Circle Dug Ranch, a 15,000-acre property in the Big Bend, about 200 miles from El Paso, Texas, and 5 miles east of the Rio Grande River. Morgan and Michael also lived at the family's ranch and slept in a separate bedroom. Walker, standing tall at 6'3", was a force to be reckoned with. He had years of hunting experience under his belt and guided clients every week through everything involved in hunting, from loading a gun to firing the perfect shot. That first week of January, when Walker was shot, 2 clients, Edwin and Carol Roberts, both in their 50s, were staying in an RV on the Circle Dug Ranch. Edwin was a former college football player and chiropractor, and Carol was a registered nurse from Pensacola, Florida. On the first day of their expedition at Circle Dug, Carol shot and outed a type of wild sheep with curved horns and a long beard that's now considered an invasive species in Big Bend. But the next day was uneventful. Edwin and Carol didn't get any hits. They went back to Walker's ranch at 4 p.m. where they had a big dinner of steak, shrimp, and potatoes. At the end of the night, the couple went to their RV, watched a movie, and went to bed. Less than 3 weeks before Walker was shot, people burglarized Circle Dug. Some strangers stole hunting knives, a flashlight, frozen pizzas, soft drinks, camouflage hunting jackets, and a $600 sleeping bag. The morning after the burglary, Morgan looked out into the distance and saw a group of people hiking up the Sierra Vieja and believed these people to be the culprits. Many border crossers from Mexico travel through Circle Dug on their way to safety. Hunters at the ranch often found empty water bottles and old sleeping bags left behind by the undocumented migrants before their hike. Several migrants came to the ranch in December 2016 asking for help. Morgan called Border Control to report the burglary. Agents found the migrants halfway up the Sierra Vieja and collected some of the stolen property. So, when Edwin and Carol arrived at Circle Dug for their week-long hunting excursion, Walker told them to be on guard and to arm themselves, especially at night. The night of the shot, Edwin and Carol were sleeping in the RV when they woke up to a rattling noise outside. Edwin yelled out that he had a gun. A man outside yelled back that he wanted the RV. He didn't have an accent. The man rattled the door again, and Edwin shot a single bullet through it. As this was happening, Ashley ran onto the front porch and down the stairs where she saw Walker hiding behind Edwin and Carol's RV, but he didn't see anyone else. Walker shouted at her to go back inside. He assumed that the trespassers, not Edwin, had shot. Inside the house, Morgan and Michael were readying themselves to go outside. Morgan grabbed her revolver. Michael grabbed his rifle, a Bushmaster AR-15. They ran to the front door and heard Edwin and Carol yelling. They saw Walker hiding behind the RV. Morgan stayed on the porch as Michael ran to join Walker. Michael didn't hear Edwin's shot, but he saw that Walker was very on edge. Walker said that someone tried to shoot him, and Edwin and Carol were being held hostage in the RV. The reverse lights switched on and the RV started reversing. Edwin was in the driver's seat, but Walker, from the back of the vehicle, assumed that the hijackers were trying to steal it. He shot the tires, and Michael followed, deflating the rear tire. Then he ran to the driver's side window and shot through it. Walker couldn't see that it was really Edwin in the front seat, since it was the middle of the night, and there were curtains in the RV windows. Michael fired another 2 shots. They took a step back and waited for someone to exit the vehicle. Just after Edwin shot through the RV door, Carol Carol looked out the back window and saw the barrels of 2 guns, but didn't know that they belonged to Michael and Walker. Edwin told Carol to get down to the floor while he threw their RV in reverse, hoping to take out the trespassers lurking behind the vehicle. That's when Walker ran up to the side and shot Edwin. The bullet went through the driver's side and passenger's side windows and grazed Edwin's arm. The car spun out of control and veered into a cedar post that was holding up the roof of the hunting lodge. Walker's gun was empty, so he ran back to the house to reload it. Morgan was inside with her revolver, ready to fire at any moment. Then she heard another shot. A bullet hit Walker in the ribcage, went straight through his abdomen, destroyed a part of his liver, and lodged itself in the bottom of his left lung, dangerously close to his heart. He was hurt and could hardly stand. Morgan helped him into the house, where he collapsed in a chair. Morgan tried to put down her gun, but accidentally pulled the trigger and shot through her backpack and into the wall. She grabbed blankets and used them to put pressure on Walker's wound. Ashley was inside the house when Morgan and Walker came inside. Then she saw Edwin and Carol's RV try to zoom off, but accidentally ram into a boulder. Ashley found a phone and called 911. Michael was still outside looking for Walker and had no idea that he had been shot. Then Edwin appeared, yelling that he was shot, where they had a brief moment trying to figure out who each other was. Then Michael helped him inside. Then he went back out to find Carol, who was still lying on the floor of the RV. Carol and Edwin went into a separate room where she put years of intensive care nursing to use. She put pressure on his wounds and waited for the ambulance to arrive. As soon as the 911 call came in from Circle Dug, Chief Deputy of Presidio County Sheriff's Office, Joel Nunez, sped over to the ranch. He got out of the car and saw nothing out of the ordinary. He had his rifle drawn and walked up to the front porch and knocked. As soon as the door opened, he saw Walker on the floor. He asked the dispatcher to send backup. He stood near the front door, bracing himself for another attack. After 40 minutes, a medic finally arrived to help Walker. He was airlifted to the hospital and remained unconscious for several days. Border Patrol agents went out to look for the assailants, but Officer Nunez was convinced that Walker shot Edwin, but he wasn't sure who shot Walker. Edwin told reporters that the voice he heard from inside the RV did not have an accent. In Nunez's experience, all of the border crossers had accents. He also wondered why migrants would want to steal a huge RV that wasn't exactly the best thing to drive up the Sierra Vieja. He also doubted that it was drug smugglers who attacked because they usually tried to sneak by without drawing attention to themselves. The Presidio County Sheriff's Office received multiple phone calls from the people ready to start shooting any border crossers on the property. Nunez insisted that there was no evidence of an attack. Less than 2 weeks after the incident, the Sheriff's Office concluded their investigation and recommended that both Michael and Walker both be charged with deadly conduct, a third-degree felony. When they were indicted, District Attorney Sandy Wilson added another charge, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, a second-degree felony. Wilson and Nunez believed that the voice Edwin heard outside the RV was actually just Walker trying to play a prank. The story immediately spread that the ranch was attacked by undocumented migrants. Ashley even set up a GoFundMe for Walker since he didn't have medical insurance. They raised more than $18,000 in 2 days. A few days after the shootout, the Gila Growers Association in New Mexico released a statement saying that what happened at Circle Dug was an organized attempt to ambush and kill the family. With Donald Trump's inauguration less than 2 weeks away, the events at Circle Dug polarized the country even more. Agriculture Commissioner took to Facebook to declare his support for Walker, declaring him a hero and a man of God, furthering Trump's argument to create a wall at the U.S.-Mexico border. Across party lines, many Democrats claimed that Walker and Edwin blamed Mexican migrants for a prank gone wrong. Even Stephen Colbert made a jab at Walker on CBS's Late Show. For the most part, Walker was oblivious to the media attention he was getting. His family didn't even tell him about the criminal charges for fear of harming his recovery. When he was finally healthy enough to take the news, Walker was shocked, wondering why the police thought he did anything wrong. On April 11, 2017, he turned himself into police and was released on $10,000 bond. After being charged with deadly conduct and aggravated assault, Wilson offered them a deal of 10 years probation in exchange for a guilty plea. Walker accepted that he shot Edwin by accident, but the brother-in-laws remained unconvinced that Michael shot Walker, so they decided to fight the charges. After all, if they were convicted, they would lose their ability to carry a firearm and therefore end their careers as hunting guides. In March 2018, Wilson withdrew her offer of probation and sentenced both Walker and Michael to 10 years behind bars. The same month, Edwin and Carol filed a $1 million lawsuit against Walker and his entire family, including his parents, who weren't even there that night. The family was shocked. Edwin was a close friend and a client of the Daughertys for over 20 years. Just a few weeks after they filed their lawsuit, Michael and Walker's attorneys hired a ballistics expert, Richard Ernest, to study the x-ray of the bullet in Walker's lung. Ernest discovered that the bullet in Walker's lung was twice the size of the bullets in Michael's gun. But Wilson doubted Ernest's assessment. But other ballistic experts backed up Ernest's claims that the bullet lodged in Walker's lung was way too large to come from Michael's gun. And it didn't come from Edwin's either. So while the ballistics report exonerated Michael, it also opened up the question of who really shot Walker. Morgan and Ashley's witness statements didn't line up. Border Patrol didn't find any footsteps where Walker claimed the trespassers were standing when he was shot. There was a lot of inconsistencies in the case. Edwin claimed he only shot his gun once, but officers found 2 empty cartridges. Walker knew that there was no chance Edwin was the one who shot him. That would mean that he was driving the RV with his injured arm and aiming his gun perfectly out the window with the other. Walker says that most of the time he forgets about the incident and the bullet is still lodged in his chest. But he has become suspicious of the media for taking his story and turning it into a political statement. He says that if the incident hadn't occurred on the US-Mexico border, the news might not have even picked up the story. That October, the district attorney dropped all of the charges against Walker and Michael. The next spring, Edwin and Carol settled their civil suit against the family. It was finally over, but Nunez wasn't satisfied. He believed he built a strong case against Michael and Walker and didn't forgive them for immediately blaming Mexican migrants. And still, the question of who shot Walker remains unsolved. The only evidence of possible intruders is the bullet lodged in his chest that doesn't match the bullets in Edwin or Michael's guns. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section whether or not you think Americans should be allowed to bear arms.